I'm gonna do this. There we are.
Yeah.
Right, everybody, can you all see that? All good? Now, we're going to be talking a little bit about the travel trade. We obviously, whenever we had conversations with you, we did bring that up, but let's start at the very, very beginning. What actually is the travel trade? Who is the travel trade? Because I think that's really important to understand. So the travel trade is a distribution network of tourism and travel intermediaries who organize travel services and provide them as package tours or individually bookable services. So these tour operators and travel agencies, they make arrangements and contracts with hotels, with airlines, with attractions and other suppliers. And they promote these packages and sell them as an assembled program to individuals. Now, how does that look like in terms of distribution of your product? Now, what you're currently all doing is you're doing that little arrow on the very left. You see where it says product experiences, visits, and accommodation, and you go directly to your visitors. That might be through your website, it might be through TripAdvisor, through your Facebook page, and so forth. But there are so many more opportunities that you can and you should be considering. So going from the left to the right, you have the OTAs. These are the online travel agencies. And these will be guys like Booking.com if you had accommodation. It's Airbnb experiences. It's TripAdvisor, who of course sell through Viator, which is a platform that specializes in particular activities and excursions. The other option would be that you're going through a tour operator who organizes FIT packages. And FIT stands for individuals. So up to 6 people, I would call an FIT. You then have the bigger organizations. You have DMCs. These are destination management companies. A lot of the time they will be based in the UK. They're based domestically. They know the destination very well. And they sell packages or individual services to tour operators who in turn sell their product through the travel agency onto the consumer. And then you have the big boys, the wholesalers. It's very much about the quantity. And a lot of the time they will be providing coach operators with products. And these coach operators, again, will be selling through a travel agency. So as you can see, there's quite a wide choice of how you can distribute your product to the visitors. And a lot of the time when we're looking at working with the travel trade, yes, we will be looking at getting your product recognized on the international markets. But of course, there's no doubt that the domestic market is very important as well. So if you're looking at how big this pie actually is, this here is from 2019, and it's UK-wide figures. So that will include England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and also Scotland. It gives you an overall picture. So within the UK, 78% of visits were done by the UK market. 12% of visits were done by the European market, and then 10% were done by international markets. But then when we're looking at the spend, this is where the story changes a little bit. So we see from the UK market, 55% of spend. The long haul market spends 26% of the total. And then the European markets, 19%. And that gives you one of the reasons why it's so important to work with the international market, because their spend is so much higher. Yes, it's true that UK visitors travel all year round typically, but then you find you have more of a demand there or during school holidays and at weekends, whereas the international markets travel all year round, predominantly between April and September. But you know, the UK inbound visitors spending 28.4 million in 2019, that's quite nice. If you were to single that out for Northern Ireland, they spent $1 billion in Northern Ireland alone through 5.3 million visitors. So certainly the pie is big enough for everybody to have a big juicy slice of that. But then when we look at the international visitors, we have to look at how they actually book, because it's so very different from the UK market. The US is the highest international market, the largest international market into Scotland, and also, because I checked that this afternoon, into Northern Ireland as well. Now, from the US visitors that we see, 55% use intermediaries, so they go through the travel trade. We see a very high usage of travel trade agents, of travel agents. The US, most of the time visitors there have their trusted travel agent they go through again and again to travel around the world. The good thing about the US market is that their bookings are usually made about 7 months in advance, 7 months prior to travel. So it's nice if you get these bookings in early because you can see what your books are shaping out to be. The German market is the second largest market into our destination, and there the percentage is even higher. 65% will only ever book through the travel trade. And let me stress that they will only ever book through the travel trade. They will not come to you directly. Yes, they might have a look on your website and say, oh, this is something that I fancy doing. But when it comes to booking it, they will go through a tour operator or a travel agency. They tend to collate the information online and offline. It's a big, big hobby in Germany to go to a travel show. That's a consumer show. And they will be loading up with brochures of different destinations before they then choose their holiday and what they want to do on their holiday. And again, the German market books very far in advance. They book approximately 6 months in advance of travel, again, giving you plenty of warning of their arrival. So when you think of these numbers, you really have to realize that there's no effective way to reach the tourists pre-arrival without working through the travel trade. Yes, you could potentially hope that you'd reach them afterwards while they're in the country. How would you do that? You would maybe go through local ads, but you never know exactly what you're going to get. So I think going forward, when they're at their planning stage, when they're talking to their travel arranger, that's what you want to do, and this is who you want to go with. And then let's have a quick look at what the international visitors are looking for. And this is really an average, looking at all our key markets. So when they come to Scotland, they will be looking at scenery and landscape. This is really the biggest draw that we have on the British Isles in general. Yes, they are very much interested in history and culture. That's something they want to live and experience. A lot of them say they always wanted to travel. So that's really good to know that we're on the bucket list for a lot of international visitors. And yes, there's no doubt, you know, visiting the cities is part and parcel of that as well. But a lot of them want to get away from it all. And why is that so important? That is important because they're really interested in rural destinations. The rural escapes is something that they're balanced with the city adventure that they will have. They're also, and this is an emerging trend really for the last 3 years, people want to sight do rather than sight see. They don't just want to sit on a bus and look left and right. They want to get off the bus. They want to meet the locals and they want to understand. They want to touch and feel things to kind of like really experience the destination. They're also interested in soft activities. And this is something that they consider to be safe. That's something that they think any ability can do. And that's something that gets very often included in travel programs as well. And especially from the North American market, yes, of course, they want to discover their ancestry as well. So where we have experiences off the beaten track, we have to make sure that they're easily accessible and that the visitors know about, that they exist, and this is something that they could be doing. Now, what does this mean working with inbound tour operators? Well, there are currently over 500 companies, give and take, that bring tourists to the UK. And the majority of them will offer package holidays. Now, these companies do a large amount of marketing. That might be through their website, through their brochures, and they do that marketing to the visitor while they are at their planning stage. Remember, the American market and the German market book 6-7 months in advance. They will be starting their planning about a year in advance, up to 10 months in advance. Then these companies will advertise globally. Some specialize in certain countries. So for example, in the UK, and that's where they grow their interest. That's where they become real specialists in. So these travel distributors allow you as a business to reach customers that are international, and you're able to reach customers beyond your own marketing budget. That's really important. Now, when we're looking at this, we need to look at relevant travel styles, especially for the products that you have. Generally, all the businesses in your group, you have certain abilities and your product is suited to certain styles. So let's just have a look at the styles to help you then decide who your product is potentially suitable for. So you heard me mention before the FITs. There's many ideas around that: fully inclusive tours, fully individual travel. To me, it simply means that this is individuals. It might be a couple, it might be a couple of friends traveling together. But generally, we always talk about FITs when we talk up to 6 people. Now, a lot of the time we find that the FIT market will do self-drive programs. That means they hire a car or they come in their own car. They explore the country. Sometimes they stay just one night in a region. Sometimes they stay 2 or 3 nights in a region to do multi-center holidays. So this is quite an active program that they're doing. What will they be looking for? Well, if they haven't booked the entire program, including the activities, with the initial package, they might be booking an activity online. So bookability online is really important for this particular segment. What do we have next? We have leisure groups. Now, leisure groups come in different shapes and sizes. You could have a private group. This might be a group of friends, a club or association. And they're always quite good because you know that they're coming, you know that they're an existing group, and they will come to you and say, we're looking at a specific date. Have you got availability for us? Now, the next one is what we call the sit-in coach tours. These can either be large groups, so up to 40, 45 people, or they can be small tours, up to 16, 18, or 24 people. Now, what happens with these tours is that you have an operator who creates an itinerary, and they will book multiple days in advance, often 18 months in advance of travel. They then create this tour, they put it into their brochure, and they will then go out and sell it through the travel agencies to individual customers. A lot of the time you find that the sit-in coach tours consist of an older audience that's similar to the domestic coach operators, whereas the small group tours are very often attended by a younger audience and middle-aged people who are a little bit more independent and want to have that small group experience. Now, when this travel style books with you, they will always ask you on request. So the operator will get in touch with you and say, this is what I'm planning. This is the program that I want to do with you, and here's my dates. Can you do that? Sometimes it might be a self-guided activity, and sometimes they will ask you if you're able, to assist them with language, be it language guides and so forth. But a lot of the time they will actually bring their own guides. And then we have the educational travel. I just want to mention that briefly because I don't feel it's that relevant for our group here, but it's worth mentioning that. Educational travel is put together by specialist agencies. A lot of the time they're based in the UK, and they will be looking after a group of individuals, very often high net worth clients, who are interested in a specific theme. So that might be architecture, it might be history, it might even be activity, we never know. But these range from higher end individuals to younger adults as well. And it's maybe something that you can think, what could you potentially do for an educational travel operator? Is there something that you can do that would teach younger people around a specific theme that you're strong with? I'm looking at stargazing, for example. That might be something. So just keep that in mind and see how that would be a fit for your individual business. And then we need to look at the main intermediaries as well. So again, you have a little bit of a feel for who you're dealing with. And I mentioned before the wholesalers and large tour operators. Now, these operators have a global reach. They will be doing group travel as well as FIT programs. But these are the big guys. They're looking for quantity. So when they book with you, they would expect you to be available every day of the week throughout the year where possible. So maybe not quite the right fit, but there's others that might be a lot better. So there are, for example, niche operators. They're very often specialized in either a destination or a theme. So it might be an operator who say, I do travel to the UK only. It might be an operator who does adventure tourism, who does active tourism, for example, walking tour operators and so forth, psycho specialists. And this is what I see, especially for you guys, a real opportunity, because these operators very often are very flexible and they're more forthcoming in terms of trying new programs. But then also, they just have the right client for us, haven't they? They have the client who wants to be a little bit more active, who tries to do new things. And then we have the travel agencies and the small tour operators, and they're really important in some of the consumer segments. Remember when I talked about the American market and I said they really trust in the travel agent. They're sometimes difficult to get hold of, but often when they're good, they will find you. Keep in mind that with these small operators, it's small quantity. They might only come to you once every 3 years, but when they do, very often it will be very high quality. It will be very high spend. They might have a client who says, I want to do an experience, I want to do it exclusively, and I don't care how much it costs. So again, it provides a really good opportunity for us. So you've got your product, you're going to the trade, but before we do that, we need to kind of like have a look at it, how the travel trade actually builds their programs, builds their itineraries, and buys new product. And there's two ways. So one might be that the tour operator, the travel agent, comes to you directly and says, tell me all about your product. Yes, I like it. I've got the right client for you. Or they might be going to a DMC, a destination management company, which is a destination specialist for the UK, for Scotland, for Northern Ireland. And they will package up new ideas, and they will then go to the tour operators, to the travel agencies and say, look, I've got new programs here. Would that not be a good fit for your market? But whichever way the travel trade goes, there are some key considerations that they have. Now, the first one, of course, is sellability. Any operator within the travel trade will be looking at the product combined with other product ideas. So the new program, and see, is there something that we can actually sell on our market? And closely linked to that is availability. So they will either say for individuals, for FITs, is there a regular schedule of activity that we can book our clients onto? And for groups, if I send a request, will those requests be fulfilled? If you turn around 9 out of 10 times them asking you and saying, sorry, I can't do this, that's probably going to turn the tour operator off. Then there's operational aspects. You know, is the operational aspect very difficult? Is it difficult to book? Does it take a long time to get answers? Again, that is something that will turn the tour operator off. And then, of course, the cost per platform. Where you have an operator that produces a brochure, there's a very specific cost, and it's not a cheap cost for each entry into their brochure, especially if they're adding programs. New pages cost money. So that then goes back to the sellability. The operator will say, is this strong enough a program that includes your product? So I can sell enough to break even on the cost of my platform. And sometimes they might turn around and say, no, I don't think this is strong enough. It will not sell enough. But this is where the niche operators come in again. They very often trial new programs on their websites, and the websites are a lot cheaper to run. So they will say, you know what, I've got your product, I'll put this into your program, we try it out, we give it 2 years, and if it works, we're going to put it into the brochure as well. And then what are the travel trade looking for in a product? Well, needless to say, they're looking for a quality product and experience that will be delivered by you consistently. They're hoping for reliability and efficiency. So for example, consistent operating hours and regular schedules. They want to have a high level of customer service and of course, helpful reservation staff. They need clear and easy to understand collateral, and online is definitely more important than offline. They're hoping that you will understand the cultural needs of the different markets, and that the pricing that you give them is commissionable and that it's consistent for them. So they're hoping that you give their competition exactly the same prices. And they absolutely do need easy communication, either by phone or by email, especially where you have a product that is on request. So let's have a quick look at the commercial requirements. And this is the one that I can see all of you shiver ever so slightly. If you want to engage with the travel trade, and I'm talking here about the traditional tour operators, so those that produce programs in advance for the international markets, they will be looking at trade rates approximately 18 months in advance, but 12 months in advance at the very latest. It's just because the planning cycle is so long. I do have to stress that this is not something that applies if you're planning to engage, for example, with the OTAs, with TripAdvisor, with Viator, Airbnb experiences. The OTAs work on a much shorter time scale. This is really just for the traditional tour operator market. Now, when they are requesting bookings with you, they need really a fast response, ideally within 24 hours. Non-refundable deposits are really difficult for the traditional travel trade because the travel laws internationally are so lenient and they're all skewed towards the consumer that, for example, in the German market, if a customer is a no-show, the tour operator can still not charge 100%. So keeping all that in mind, all these travel laws that are out there, they just can't work with non-refundable deposits. Yes, you're always looking for value for money. This is why I always say to you, look around you, look at what other people are charging and see that you fall within that. They absolutely want to have a point of contact. And if you have any staff, any people that you work with who speak languages, make that known as well. But you know, it sounds like that the travel trade have very high demands. Yes, they have certain expectations, but they're really a good bunch. And they always say that they're looking for cooperation partners to work for all their success. They're as interested in you being successful as they want to be successful as well. I see at the end of the day, it's always in communication, isn't it? And then what about the pricing for the trade? Well, I hear a lot of times the question, well, what price shall I charge? And I always say every business is different. At the end of the day, you have to decide what's right for you, what makes you a profitable business. And, you know, do your due diligence, look around what other competitors are charging. But when you work with the travel trade, they are looking for a net rate. That means that it's a price that has already got the commission deducted. So as an example, if your experience is £10 and you decide to go for a 20% commission, you would say to the tour operator, I'll charge you £8. So it's already deducted and the £8 is your net rate. And then you always have to be very clear, is that rate per person, per activity, is it per vehicle, is it per boat? And just remember rate parity as well. The travel trade will also always expect you to include VAT in the price. Don't say it's £8 plus VAT. The VAT needs to be included in that. And here's a little quirk of the trade. The travel trade looks at pricing in seasons. So they don't want a price from January or December. They want a price from the 1st of April until the 31st of March the next year, because it means they cover the summer season and then the winter season as well. Now, pricing for the trade. Here's a little bit of a discount guideline, and note the word guideline. The OTAs, Booking.com, Expedia, Airbnb, they'll probably come to you and say they want to have 30%. And what you do is you turn around and say, no, sorry, can't do that. And you say to them, but I can give you 10%. And then they will either agree to that or you meet somewhere in the middle. But usually, you know, I hear stories from anything between 10% to 30%. It depends on your business. It depends on what you can do pricing wise, but it's always worth speaking up and saying to you, this is what I can give you. And most of the time you'll find they agree to that. When you're working with some more traditional operators, so the tour operators, the wholesalers, the DMC, they will usually ask you for 20%. But you know, again, that will be negotiable. I think as you start working with the travel trade, if that's what you decide to do, you might actually start with 10%. If somebody really likes your product, I've seen over the last few years, there's a lot more leniency now. And they will say, do you know what, we'll package you up with other experiences, with other products, and we'll hide it within that. But just be prepared that most likely they will be asking you for 20%. And then you have the retail travel agencies. So the travel agencies generally will ask you for 10 to 15%. So when we do our session, when we have our one-to-ones, we can have a little bit of a conversation around this with each of you individuals, see where you are and see what you like to do and where you would want to go. But you know, I always say about this commission and about what you have to give the operators, I think you need to look at it the other way around. You need to consider this to be a marketing fee, and you need to include it in your pricing from the very outset. So it might not be something you might want to do for this year, but when you consider your pricing for next year, put that in there, put it in as a marketing fee, because you have to be aware that when you work with the travel trade, these are all people that will never ever come to you directly because they want to book through the travel trade. Just think back, 55% of Americans and 65% of Germans will always only come to the travel trade. That means they're actually delivering you 80% more revenue than you would have had before. And because you pay this commission only on an successful sale, it is a no-win and no-fee relationship that you have there. So you're basically paying this marketing fee only, and you're having 100% return of investment, which is really amazing. So that's the way I would like you to look at that. And then, yes, there are certain quirks the trade have, the traditional travel trade, definitely. They do have a very international mindset because they know exactly where their customers are coming from. But also, these operators are time poor. So whatever story you tell them around your product, it has to be efficient and it has to be creative. So offer them a complete solution. For example, best example, not relevant, but maybe you understand what I mean. If you had a self-catering place, offer them catering options, because this is something what they need for their individual customers. Just think where they're coming from, what they're having with them on their holiday. It's not that they can nip home and get changed and get warm. Just see if you can provide them either with the information or say to them quite clearly, you need to bring warm clothing for after your experience. And then, of course, collaborate with other suppliers in the area, and whatever story you do, make it nice and simple, because working with the travel trade means you're building a relationship and you're telling a story. And then how would you do best engage with the travel trade once you decided you want to go there? Well, you might want to consider attending trade missions and trade events, but that's really quite high up there. There's other ways to go. So the first step really for you would be to visit Scotland. Let Visit Scotland know what your product is and that you're happy to engage with the travel trade. The same with Tourism Northern Ireland. Let them know that you're there. Ask them about the trade events that they have. Discover Scotland and Meet the Buyer, and see if you can get involved with that somehow. There's also industry organisation, for example, UK Inbound. That really is a very good networking platform, but a little bit more expensive. And then look around for domestic holiday exhibitions as well. Maybe go one day, check them out and see if that's something for you maybe to engage with. But you know, as I said, you need to create a destination. The important thing is that whatever your product is and however good your product is, you can't ever sell it on its own. You have to create a destination, and you have to sell your destination before you sell your product. That's really important. And then lastly, popping back, it is important that you engage with the right operator, especially I think with the group of businesses we have here. There is no point you going to TUI Travel and say, look, you know, this is what we do. TUI Travel won't be interested because they only do the standard programs. Well, if they do them, because I hear they're cancelling all their flights at the moment. But for us, really, it's the specialist operators that are important for us. So activity operators that specialize in walking, hiking, cycling. There are other operators to slow travel, they do nature travel, but they really want to immerse themselves in a destination and in a product that's there. You would be looking out for the FIT operators, the small group operators who are looking for experience and options, particularly add-on options. And then there's other operators who are really big in social responsibility, who really want to engage with the country and with the people. These are, for example, Kontiki Reisen or the Travel Corporation. Again, these provide a lot of opportunity for the more unusual products. And then there's even specialist OTAs to look at, such as Much Better Travel and others. So just make sure that whatever you do it well and you're very focused. Now, are there any questions at this moment in time? I know that we're all going to have our one-to-one, so you can quiz me anything to do with your specific business, but are there any comments or any questions just now? Anybody?
Yes, me, Esther, hi.
Esther, hello.
Two things actually from my side. So the very first slide you said, you know, it's like the sort of international travel. They look very much for, the trends are for soft activities. That's what you put there. And I'm not 100% sure if sort of our group is very much considered as a soft activity. Some of us potentially, but others maybe a bit more than just soft.
Yeah.
Are we going to cover actually the sort of the numbers, what it is for sort of the medium level activities? It's like not outgoing, whatever, climb Everest type of things, but it would be probably quite interesting to figure that out, what the numbers are there and the percentages in the international trade. And then the other thought I had was, but this is probably going sort of thinking bigger, because obviously we represent here as a group, we very much represent one part of the south of Scotland. Do you think that it might be actually quite useful to club together and go as a group with sort of activities, what we to specific international events? Because I think it might be quite useful that we have a voice as activity providers for the South that can be probably quite strong. And actually the third one is you mentioned visit Scotland as a place to go, but obviously we know there's also the SSDA that is pushing and is trying to do the international and travel trade. They're obviously very young in what they're trying to do. Experiences so far, or just trying everything? What's your thoughts?
Well, okay, I'll start from back to front. So I think that, Visit Scotland plays such an important role that Visit Scotland has to be aware of what this group is doing, of the individual businesses, for them to take out to the markets as well. Yes, the SST is very important as well, and they're doing international marketing as well, but I see their strength at the moment very much on the domestic side. The key focus for them currently is domestic, which also is a good thing. And we had, of course, Ross from the SSDA on the first workshop. But, as we said to you in the one-to-one meetings as well, definitely worth engaging with them and seeing how you can get onto their sites to make your product better known to the markets that are there. Mm-hmm. But what's your second question? Clubbing together. Yeah. Yes. Clubbing together, I think that is a very good idea. And, you've been doing a little bit of future gazing there. I think it will be really exciting to explore that in a little bit more detail. And I'm sure that Fergus will agree with that because, it has been in conversation, with other, not only other regions, but other businesses as well. Fergus, do you want to give a little bit of background on that, what the conversations have been in the past?
Yeah, there's been a bit of a sort of dialogue with when they were developing the outdoors strategy for Scotland. We did a lot of workshops around the UK, around Scotland. But one of the sort of things that was coming out of that was about stronger collaboration of the industry, like through Wild Scotland, which are the membership organisation for the outdoor space, and for them to work together, not to be a Visit Scotland led thing, but to be an industry led thing where they come together and they showcase the Scottish products to the world through the event that's been held online this year, but it's back in Aberdeen next year, where the travel trade come to Scotland, and there's an opportunity to do that. We're still waiting for the outcome of that report to be published. It was meant to be in May. I'm hoping it's going to be sometime in June with ministerial approval. So I think that's just something we'll keep you in the loop with as things unfold. I think the bigger picture is, I know I had a wee sort of offline chat with Ross electronically about just talking about the adventure space in the south of Scotland. There's obviously a good group of providers that are on this programme, and there are others that are not within D&G, but there's also quite a nice mix of offers across in the borders. So you could actually create quite a strong sort of regional collaboration in terms of really pushing out this sector to the marketplace collectively. So I think these are things for consideration in the longer term, if that answers the question.
And I also think, Esther, that maybe this is a conversation to be had with the SSDA fairly soon as they're planning participation of Discover Scotland in Aberdeen next year. So Discover Scotland is a trade show that brings a lot of international operators to the country, to Scotland. It is scheduled, I think, for April next year. So the sooner a conversation like that is being held, the better, depending on what the SSDA are planning. It might be that they're taking an entire large section for the south of Scotland that gives different providers a space to exhibit, where then a decision could be taken that the activity providers come together and have one or two representatives, maybe different people on different days, but kind of like maybe just already noting a little bit of interest with the SSTA to see this is something that we touched upon when you have conversations around that, get us involved. And then
Morgan, you got your hand up.
Yep, sorry, was that all the questions answered?
I think there was one last one left, which was around the adventure tourism sector. Fergus, again, the work that we've done there for the adventure sector strategy, were there any more detailed information in that report around the sector, the value of the sector in Scotland?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, there's some information that there was a whole lot of research done that's still not out in the public domain. I think what I'll find out is that we're able to share this with the group in terms of that information that breaks everything down into the sort of 24 different activities and all the demographics and things. So leave that with me in terms of that intelligence, because I think that's something that's important to be shared, not just with this group, with the industry as a whole across Scotland.
Okay. My question was just around engagement with the tour operators, I suppose, because it feels a little bit like, I know we've talked about collaboration and we've talked about events, but it feels a bit, as a very small business, and as most of us on here are very small businesses, it feels a little bit David and Goliath almost. You know, how would you approach these, you know, how would you approach the travel trades as a really small business and yeah, engage with them and essentially get their buy-in?
I think that's probably a timeous lead in, without jumping in there, Yvonne, with Mike, who's with us this evening.